Last week we talked about some things about us that are unchangeable. And this week we're going to do that again, except it's not something about us that's unchangeable. It's something about time that's unchangeable. We're going to talk about the past and whether we can change the past or not. So in order for us to do this, I want you to have a conversation in your group about time travel. Now, yes, you're going to have a conversation in your group about time travel. You see, when I was a kid, when I was in high school, a movie came out called Back to the Future. And I loved this movie. The teenage hero in this movie discovers, with his friend's help, his friend who is the mad scientist type, that he can travel back in time. And he ends up going back in time 30 years and decides while he's back there that maybe there are some things that he can change. And if he changes those, then maybe that will change something that then happens in the future. So that's the conversation you're going to have with your group. If you could go back in time, what would you change? Why would you change that thing? We'll put a timer up like we've been doing so you can have a couple of minutes to discuss this and have a good time with this conversation, and I'll see you back here in a minute. Now, let's see. If I were to go back in time, there are some things that I would not change. I would not change the mullet. Man, I had a good mullet. Anyhow, you don't care about that. What I actually would change, and this is going to be embarrassing because I'm going to have to tell things about myself that I'm not proud of. So I'm going to tell you, I had to decide which story I was going to tell, and I'm going to tell this particular story because I think maybe you'll identify with it. Now, you know me as kind of a nice guy, right? I tend to be considerate of other people. I tend to say things that I have thought out carefully, and I wasn't always like that. There was a time in my life, I would say an extended period of time of several years, where I was so self-involved that I did not care what other people thought. I didn't care what they felt, and I kind of just ran over people that I didn't have much respect for. And I'm not proud of this, but okay, I'll just choose one embarrassing story to tell you about this. I treated people so poorly that there was this one time when I was dating a girl, and I kind of decided that I was done with her, and so I quit dating her, except I didn't really tell her that I quit dating her. In fact, the next time this girl saw me, I had my arm around her best friend. I'll wait here while all the girls boo and hiss. You should know that I'm different now, and surely my wife will tell you that I'm much different than that now. And as you might have guessed, this girl was crushed. She was hurt. And the worst part about me was I didn't care. And that just tells you what kind of person I was. If I could go back in time, I think I would want to change the way I treated people. I think I would not be a jerk to the people who are in my life. But of course, time travel is not real, at least not yet. And if it were, we would still need to face this reality. The past is unchangeable. Our past is unchangeable. We cannot go back to undo the way we've hurt people. We cannot go back and untell the lies we've told. We cannot unsay those nasty things we said to our friends or our teammates or our teachers or our parents or classmates. We can't undo that. The past is not changeable. But this brings up an interesting question. If we cannot change the past, is there something that we can do about the past? Is there something we can do about this unchangeable past? This verse is found in the book of Colossians, written by a man named Paul, and he says this: "For God has rescued us from the dominion of darkness and brought us into the kingdom of the Son he loves, in whom we have redemption, the forgiveness of sins." Now that first line should catch our attention. God has rescued us from the dominion of darkness. We could not have rescued ourselves. That's the power that sin and darkness has over us. Only God can rescue us from sin and darkness. But keep on going here. The verse tells us not just what we were rescued from, but also what we are rescued to. God brought us into the kingdom of the Son he loves. Jesus can bring you out of darkness and into something completely new, his own kingdom. But the word I really want to focus on here is this word that's coming up, redemption. Now, we hear this word redemption used a lot today. We hear it used in sports. We say that an athlete can redeem themselves. Patrick Mahomes might throw 3 interceptions in one game, but then come back and have a fantastic game to beat the Patriots in the conference championship, and we would say that he redeemed himself. And this is a pretty good use of the word redemption, taking something in the past and turning it into something different in the future. Redemption. But we can't actually do this for ourselves, especially in regards to our own sin, the wrong things that we have done in the past. We can't go and change them, and we can't even redeem them. Only Jesus can do this. Jesus rescues us from the dominion of darkness and brings us into the kingdom of light. In him we have redemption. This redemption word is really hard, so instead of me trying to explain it anymore, let me just tell you a story. John was not a very good guy. He had a rough childhood. His mother died when he was 6. His father was a ship's captain and just brought him on the ship by the time John was 11. John was forced into the Royal Navy as a young adult, which was a pretty rough life too. John was apparently so unlikable that the crew on one of his ships abandoned him in West Africa. They just left without him. Now, John eventually made something of himself and became a ship's captain, which at first sounds like everything is getting better, but it's actually getting worse because the ship's cargo was slaves. John had become a slave trader. He was making money selling people. John was not a very good guy. Then one day, John's slave ship was caught in a terrible storm. The kind of storm where sailors get washed off the deck and into the sea, never to be seen again. John felt completely helpless as he tried to navigate the storm, and came to the conclusion that only the grace of God could rescue them. John began to pray that God would rescue them, and they ended up surviving the storm. John recognized that if God would rescue him, a slave trader, not a very good guy, then maybe God would have other plans for him as well, and John began to change. I'll shorten the story this much. You should know that eventually John not only quit being a slave trader, but he began to speak out against the practice of slavery. So do you see what I mean about redemption? God can take something from our past and turn it into something good for the future. Oh yeah, I almost forgot. The most memorable thing about John is one of the songs that he wrote, a song that we still sing 150 years later. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. Does that sound like redemption to you? That's the story that I want us to hear when we try to figure out what redemption means. The past cannot be changed, but it can be redeemed. So what do we do with all this? What do we do with our past that is unchangeable, but we're not the ones who can redeem it? What are we supposed to do about this? I'm going to suggest a couple of things here, and they're simple things, but they're not easy things. The first thing is a stop doing thing. Stop pretending you've been perfect. This may not apply to everyone here, but some of you are thinking, I've never been a slave trader, so I don't really need redemption like other people. All of us here are in the same boat. We have all sinned, and deep down, you know it. Even if the worst thing you've ever done is dishonored your parents, then that's something that needs to be redeemed. But chances are, we've all done much worse things than that. Stop pretending that you're perfect. I have another stop doing thing. I think it might be helpful to stop beating yourself up over the past. I'm not saying we should make light of it, or joke about it, or just say, well, nobody's perfect. I am saying that some of us tend to dwell on the past, and we beat ourselves up over it, or we assume that we've done too many things that are not redeemable. If John Newton, the slave trader, is redeemable, then you and I are redeemable. If the thief on the cross next to Jesus is redeemable, then you and I are redeemable. Stop beating yourself up over the past. And here's your start doing thing. Start trusting God to redeem your past. Admit that you've not been perfect. Tell Jesus you've not been perfect. He already knows. And then trust Him to redeem you. Ask for His forgiveness. Trust Him to redeem your past and change your future. For some of you, this is an entirely new idea. And I want to make sure that you don't let this moment pass. In some of your hearts, you're thinking right now, I really need to do this. I need to trust Jesus to redeem me. And I want to make sure that you have a chance to do that. So would you do this for me? Would you just have a conversation with one of your leaders tonight before you leave and tell them, this is where I am and this is what I want to do? Now, many of you I know have already had this conversation with Jesus and asked Him to forgive you, and you're following Him already. And I'm not suggesting that you need to do this all over again, that you need to keep getting saved every time you do something wrong. I am suggesting that we need to keep trusting Jesus for our redemption. When we sin, we just admit we're wrong, trust that He will forgive us, and then move on. When we've got something in our past that we think is unredeemable, we just tell it to Jesus and we ask Him to forgive us and make something good out of it in the future. For God has rescued us from the dominion of darkness and brought us into the kingdom of the Son He loves, in whom we have redemption, the forgiveness of sins. I'm not the same person I used to be. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now am found, was blind, but now I see. So that's all I have for you today. Your group leaders are going to walk you through a little bit more discussion, and then we'll be done for today. But I just want you to remember this. Your past cannot be changed, but it can be redeemed.